Welcome to Snow Bros. Meteorologist Matt Makins here, updating what Brian had chatted about previously on a Snow Bros video. Yesterday's, in fact. Today is the 19th. So let's see how this next bigger impactor is potentially shaping up for us and run through some possibilities. Right now, deep snow. That's a couple feet of snowfall here just offshore. Center of the storm is still offshore, but if that thing should wiggle just to the northwest by 20, 30, 40 miles, we're going to spread a lot of snowfall across the mid-Atlantic, New England states into the northeast. Still some sizable snowfall totals to run through in this video. We'll do so location by location, but let's get kind of a wrap up our heads around not just one system, the main one we're watching, that potential coastal low for early next week, but also the snowfall that's on the way before we even get into the weekend. Heavy snowfall at times develops here across the upper Midwest, parts of Canada, moving toward Ohio and the Ohio Valley as we go through the late day today, into tonight, into tomorrow morning. At the same time, rain has spread from the south and the southeast across the Carolinas into D.C., New York, and it's flirting with snowfall early Friday morning. We'll chat in a closer zoomed in second here about the timeline with the snowfall specifics, because the rain versus snow line with this system is going to be very, very, very telling between Toronto to about Boston and New York for snow versus no snow. But this is Friday afternoon. Center of a low sits here over the Great Lakes. It's still throwing quite a bit of snowfall up toward the north and east. And meanwhile, we're dealing with on and off chances for rain here across the southeast. That's wave number one. Very little difference to what Brian showed you in yesterday's video. Here's wave number two. Just kind of on and off chances for snowfall this weekend. Not necessarily Boston, but higher chances in New York toward D.C. for snow and rainfall, and also higher chances for Toronto toward Cleveland. This is Sunday at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. By 7 o'clock, there is the low in question. This low is going to get a lot of attention from a lot of folks, because if it gets any closer to the shore, we have coastal flooding impacts, deep, deep snow to talk about Monday into Tuesday as well as Wednesday from areas anywhere from the D.C. area across Delaware, Jersey, Philly, New York, Long Island, out toward the Cape, and also in Boston, around, goodness, all across the Northeast would have that deeper snowfall. So that's the center of the low, and it's going to skirt off in this simulation. This is the European model. It's going to be well offshore. Now, I showed you this version because in Brian's, that's more American model based, and in future videos, you'll see the differences until they come to greater agreement. But the American model is a little bit closer to home here, and I'll show you what that means in terms of a snowfall impact in just a second in this video. But as we get into Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday night, Tuesday, that's when that coastal low is moved off. And yeah, we'll still have some clipper systems we'll chat about in next week's video, but this video really does focus on that weekend impact into early next week, because it could be very significant. Uncertainty still up there, a lot of options on the table, and I'll show you those options. Just as a quick overview, there's a lot of snow out to the west. A band of snow due to this favorable snow track goes from Alberta to Manitoba across the Great Lakes right in here to the north and east. So Boston, New York, toward Maine, we've got this deeper snowfall through Sunday at 7 o'clock. Pay close attention to these timestamps, because in a second I'm going to go out and include that potential coastal low, which goes through early next week. But as we look at Sunday, about 7 o'clock, we're wrapping up our weekend. We've got deep snow across the Great Lakes. Perhaps we've got about an inch in Davenport. Perhaps we've had about 5 or 6 around Minneapolis, right around an inch or so in Chicago, Detroit about an inch, Flint about an inch and a half. Then you look toward here. We get out toward Albany and Boston. It is possible we have 5 or 6 inches of snowfall as we wrap up the weekend, with more on the way, depending on that coastal low. So let's zoom our map in. Across the northeast, we have Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. Here's Quebec. Let's do D.C. and Boston, just to orient our view here. As we go Thursday morning into Thursday afternoon at 1 o'clock, Thursday evening, there comes that rain, still mostly rainfall. We need a bit colder air to turn that over to snowfall. This is Thursday at 7 o'clock. We've got rain in Philly, Baltimore, and D.C. approaching New York City and Long Island. You go north of, say, 80 and closer to 90, there's going to be a wintry mix in that area. And this goes through Thursday overnight into Friday morning. This is Friday morning at 7 o'clock. there's possibility of a rain-snow mix around New York City and Long Island. You go north of New York, that's going to be more likely into slightly cooler air, so that'd be a better chance for snowfall there. With rainfall remaining down around the D.C. area, rain along I-80 through most of Pennsylvania, and the same for sections of New York. They're 90 to the west of Syracuse, still mostly rain. We haven't tapped into much cold just yet, but watch as we hit Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock. We're throwing humidity, moisture up at some colder temperatures. So now we're giving some pockets, potentially, of heavier snowfall from Hartford up to I-90, stretching from Boston out towards Syracuse. And you can see that snowfall getting deeper now for New Hampshire and Vermont. There's Burlington. Then let's watch for Augusta as we get into Saturday morning at 1 a.m. We have pockets of heavy snowfall, not just Augusta, but down 95 into Boston, potentially Providence, out at the Cape. But notice the Cape is right on the cutoff line of rain versus snow again. We haven't truly tapped into a lot of cold to guarantee snowfall. So when temperatures are so close to freezing and the snow point and all those kinds of things, that's when you're going to see a lot of deviations in snowfall forecasts. And I'll break that down for you again coming up in this video. Here's Saturday, 7 in the morning. We still have some on and off rain and snow possible across the Mid-Atlantic. As we get into Sunday, here's the afternoon at 1 o'clock. And by this point, the coastal low is offshore. It's down right about here or so, and it tries to lift up, and it's going to try to impact a lot of the coastal areas that you see here. This is 1 o'clock on Monday morning, and then we'll get into midday Monday. Center of the low is right here at this point. And I'm showing you again the European version. Brian showed you the American version. The American version does bring a bigger impact toward coastal communities, and that option is on the table. I'm not saying I prefer this model. I'm showing you a different example because we're trying to be transparent, just showing you where uncertainties come from other sources. Well, that's why, because a big model spread in the center of that low and the potential impact on coastal areas. But by Monday afternoon and evening, that coastal low in just about all projections scoots away. So really our impact focus timeline is going to be Sunday, Monday, and perhaps into Tuesday for deeper snowfall. If you blend all of the modeling together and let that blended model kind of determine its own snowfall ratios, if you will, you get a map like this. So potentially through Sunday night at 7 o'clock, again, we're focused on that timestamp. You'll see why in a second. 6 inches for Boston, Augusta 7, Burlington close to 8, Hartford at 3, New York City 3.5. That feels like a bit of a stretch, honestly, with the rain-snow mix there. Likely to be less for there and Long Island. Philly at about 1.5 inches, and D.C. potentially a trace or a half. Again, farther south you go, that snowfall seems more like it'll be in the form of rain unless something really sneaky happens with some cold air. But let's transition. Here is that European version of the same kind of timeline. We're still going through basically the next couple of ripples that move through before the coastal low, and now look at this stretch of some deeper snow from the European model, close to a foot for New York. Again, that doesn't feel quite right considering the temperature dynamics of everything. Deeper snow would make more sense up here. Let me show you another example, the American version. And this feels a little better considering kind of the timeline of the rain and where it's moved and before it transitions into snowfall. So it feels more reasonable to have 3 to 6s across Mass, northern Connecticut, into sections of eastern New York. For Vermont and New Hampshire, the same. Also for Maine, honestly. You know, a 3 to 6, that feels comfortable through the weekend, because we're tapping into some of that colder air and mostly rain or a very light snow south of that area, say south of 90, 95 in there. Now, I brought in that. See the big jump here? Now we're out into Tuesday morning. I extended another day, day and a half, and look at this bullseye, this American model, which had a more reasonable look just a second ago. Now we're bringing in that coastal impact, and look at that. That's the swath of that potential low. And that bullseye right here, which is not far from Long Island, would be 2 feet of snowfall. So you don't have to take that center of that low very far at all, move it to the northwest, and we're talking about a significant impactor for the Mid-Atlantic into New England versus just an annoyance kind of storm, if you will. So we're going to focus on that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday time frame very closely because of these impacts. And again, a lot of options are on the table. Brian and I are showing you the options. That's the point of Snow Bros, is to be transparent and also to discuss where we are leaning. And in this case, we're not tipping over leaning because we love it so much. We're just slightly leaning toward the American modeling version here. It shows kind of maybe a better perspective on what's possible to come and where the bigger impacts would be. So same idea here. We're going through Tuesday morning. I just zoomed that map in from the northeast, got it closer to Long Island, and you can see that bullseye, the two-foot bullseye right here of snowfall is not far from Long Island. And for that matter, excuse me, a lot of Jersey and Delaware, not far from that bullseye. You get in the Jersey Shore, you move inland, and then once you just jump from, say, Delaware and hit the D.C. area, you go from a lot of snowfall to very little. So we're not talking about much of a wiggle with this storm at all to bring a tremendous impact, even to the nation's capital would be possible. But let's start down here with the map, and we'll go up to the north and east and chat about what would be possible. So again, with the American model, going through 7 o'clock Tuesday morning, we're not tipping over in love with this model. We're just slightly leaning in its direction right now. That would put Fredericksburg at close to 3 inches, Richmond at 2.5, Norfolk at about 3.5, Alexandria close to 2. It'd be the same for the D.C. area. Annapolis about 2, Baltimore at 1.5 inches, Dover closer to 4 because we're getting closer to that impact zone, right? And then you leave Delaware, you get into Jersey, you get the Jersey Shore, you get down here to Atlantic City. We're closer to 1 foot of snowfall, coastal flooding impact, Philly at 4 inches, and you don't have to work very far inland to run out of a lot of that snow. You can get closer to the hills and the mountains, and sure, we're going to increase and be back into a 3 to 6 inch range. But the main impactor, the big thing to watch the next couple of days with our future videos, if you're subbed, you're going to get those alerts the second we publish new information. And each time, watch this swath and see how close it's gotten or how much farther it's gotten. If anything, I think it's probably going to shift away, but let's keep an eye on this sucker. Okay, so here's Philly at 4. We talked about that one. Trenton, close to 8 inches. New York and the boroughs would have about 7 or 8, would be possible. I mean, ground temperatures are going to melt some stuff off, obviously, but that would be snowfall potential there. And you go out Long Island, you go out 495, and you're pushing 1 foot in some cases of potential snowfall, depending on this track. If we locked in the track of the American model now, the amount of water it has and amount of cold to work with, that's the potential snowfall there, 1 foot for Long Island. You look at I-95, and again, you don't go very far north of Long Island. And now Stamford's at about 6 inches, New Haven's 4.5, and New London's at 3. So you just work north very, very little, and you're away from that major impact. Still an impact, don't get me wrong, but not that major one. And again, just a little shift could change that. But you get toward Newport, Providence, stretch out toward Falmouth, and even Provincetown for that matter, you're looking at 8 to 12 inch possibilities. Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard would be more than 1 foot of potential snowfall, the real thick, heavy stuff, hard to shovel. Boston at 8, Salem at 8, Lowell about 9, Worcester about 10, Springfield 5. You look at Pittsfield, Albany, up towards Saratoga Springs. We're looking at some deeper pockets here. You leave Mass, you go sections of Vermont, New Hampshire, there's going to be some deep pockets of snowfall there, about 6 to 12. And again, we're not tapping into tremendously cold temperatures this time. So this snow, it's going to be the wet, heavy variety. And if the track of that low does stay so close, we really have to watch this like a hawk. Because you imagine 2 feet of the concrete snow versus 3 or 6 inches. But again, we're just slightly leaning toward this American version of the modeling. And we focused on this area right in here, okay? Now I'm just including eastern Canada because that low would curl up here and bring that snowy impact as well. For Nova Scotia, 30 to 60 centimeters. Sections of Newfoundland would be close to 60 centimeters here as well in those deeper snow pockets. So a tremendous system to watch. Maine, I know a lot of the maps for Maine, it didn't seem like it would be that big of an inconvenience, but imagine if that low gets a little bit closer, now you do have a big time inconvenience for Sunday night, Monday, and Tuesday, even into Maine. Right now, it looks like Maine is just a bit too far to the north. And we'll see as this low develops. Give it a couple of days, future updates, the modeling will come into greater agreement and things, but just the temperatures are critical with each of these systems. We're dividing rain and snow by a very thin margin. And then we talk about the early week system. Does that coastal low, does it grab enough cold to really, truly produce that kind of deep snow? It's going to have the water to work with, that's for sure. That coastal low well offshore versus, yeah, we say nor'easter, whether it be a classic nor'easter, it doesn't look like it will be, but a coastal low versus one that's well offshore or one that's very close, dropping a lot of heavy snowfall on I-95, that kind of a thing. So potentially strong impact early in the week. And that's not to take away from the rain, the snow, the wintry mix you may have today, tomorrow, Saturday, or Sunday. But from our perspective, the thing you have to watch, and stay with us, we'll get you those updates, is going to be that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday coastal low. And you'll hear a lot more about it from other sources. We hope to bring you kind of a breath of a little bit deeper knowledge into where some of those deeper snowfall totals are coming. Right now, a lot of options are on the table. We can't pull any of those options off just yet, but in future videos, in fact, perhaps even tomorrow's, we'll get much better data throughout the course of the day today, and we can pinpoint those snowfall totals for you much more precisely with less uncertainty. Until then, hope you have a great day. Thanks for helping build this Snow Bros community. If I missed you, please don't feel left out. Just leave a nice message in the comments. I'll be watching those throughout the day. I'll reach out to you.